What if the war between Iran and Israel drags on? What will happen to India's economy? Imagine waking up one day to find your mobile network gone, long queues at petrol pumps, and chaos in the stock market. That's when you'll realize the impact of a war that began miles away, in the sands of the Middle East, has reached India. A war whose spark now threatens to engulf the entire world. The conflict between Iran and Israel. But this is no longer just a matter between two nations. It has become a concern for every Indian, every wallet, every factory, and every business. Today, we will dive deep into this topic. But before we begin, if you are new to our channel, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss any of our latest videos. So let's begin today's discussion without any further delay. This past Sunday, a new wave of violence erupted between Iran and Israel. Both nations launched attacks on each other, resulting in the deaths of dozens of civilians and leaving hundreds injured. This wasn't just a limited skirmish, it was the knock of a full-scale war that had been looming for months. The situation has grown so serious that even the United States is deeply concerned. While Donald Trump appealed for peace between the two countries, Iran made it clear, as long as Israel continues its attacks, there is no chance of a ceasefire. At first glance, India might not seem to face any direct threat from this war. But the reality is far deeper and more dangerous. As the conflict escalates, other countries in the Middle East may also get involved. And that's the turning point, when India's economy could get caught in a violent storm. Let's talk about oil first, the lifeblood of India's economy. India fulfills more than 85% of its crude oil needs through imports. If the war intensifies, oil prices will skyrocket. Some reports even suggest that if the Strait of Hormuz is shut down, more than half of the world's oil supply could be disrupted. Just imagine what would happen if 5 million barrels of oil vanished in a single day. Brent crude has already surged by 7% to $74 per barrel, and if things continue to worsen, prices could soar to $200 or even $300 per barrel. This isn't just a statistic. It's a looming threat capable of shaking India's entire budget. As oil becomes costlier, petrol and diesel prices will rise. The government will be forced to provide subsidies. Funds meant for social welfare schemes will have to be diverted to fuel. And the current account deficit could spiral out of control. According to a Reserve Bank report, for every $10 per barrel increase in crude oil prices, India's GDP growth drops by 0.3%. In other words, the pace of development will begin to slow. And that's not all. A wave of inflation will sweep everything in its path. Food prices will surge, rents will rise, transportation will become more expensive. The Reserve Bank will be compelled to raise interest rates. People will cut down on spending, corporate revenues will shrink, and the job market could fall eerily silent. Now let's talk about corporate India. According to Almond Rathi research, if oil prices remain volatile, industries will face immense pressure, especially oil marketing companies. Firms like HPCL, BPCL, and IOC that are involved in refining will see their costs spike. But these costs can't be directly passed on to consumers. The result? Lower profits and higher losses. On the other hand, companies like ONGC might see some benefit, but if the government reimposes windfall taxes, even those gains could disappear. Apart from this, the aviation sector will also be caught in this storm. For airlines, 1/3 of their operating costs come from aviation fuel. As oil becomes more expensive, ticket prices will rise, leading to a drop in passenger numbers. A sector that had just begun to recover after the pandemic could find itself back in the ICU. The situation isn't much different for the paint and chemical industries either. Companies like Asian Paints and Burger Paints are heavily dependent on oil for their raw materials. Solvents, resins, and naphtha, all of these will become more expensive. The result? Product prices will rise, demand will fall, and profits will sink. And it doesn't stop there. The fertilizer and automobile sectors will also be hit hard by the rising oil prices. Producing fertilizers like urea and ammonia requires natural gas. If gas becomes expensive, either prices will increase or the government will have to bear a heavier subsidy burden. Meanwhile, auto companies will face rising costs for rubber, plastic, and petroleum-based materials, directly eating into their profits. But hidden within this crisis is also an opportunity: the rising demand for electric vehicles. As petrol and diesel become costlier, people will increasingly turn to electric alternatives. This could benefit companies like Tata Motors and Ola Electric. Now let's talk about India's international trade. In 2025, India imported goods worth $442 million from Iran and exported $1.24 billion in return. With Israel, imports stood at $1.61 billion and exports at $2.15 billion. If the war continues for long, this trade could come to a standstill. Companies will face disruptions in their supply chains. Shipping and insurance costs will also begin to skyrocket. According to the Federation of Freight Forwarders, rerouting shipments through paths like the Cape of Good Hope will be more expensive and time-consuming. If crucial trade routes like the Red Sea and the Strait of Hormuz are closed, nearly 15% to 20% of India's exports could become costlier. Trade with the MENA region, i.e., Middle East and North African countries, will also be affected. Countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar import a significant volume of pharmaceuticals, textiles, and furnishings from India. If tensions escalate, order cancellations may start, leading to serious losses for Indian companies. Israel is a major supplier of rough diamonds to India. If this supply gets disrupted, it could severely impact India's diamond cutting industry. However, there's a silver lining. India could use this gap to boost its own exports of cut and polished diamonds. Now let's turn to the Indian companies that will be directly impacted by this war. TCS, Wipro, Infosys, Adani, SBI, L&T, all of them have a presence in Israel. If the conflict escalates, their operations there could be shut down, employees might have to be laid off, and investors may panic and pull their money out. And if this war expands beyond just Iran and Israel, involving groups like the Houthis, Hezbollah, or even major powers like the US and Russia, the situation could become explosive. The global financial markets would shake. And India, already struggling with inflation, unemployment, and a widening current account deficit, could fall even further behind. The government may be exercising caution, but if this storm reaches full force, there might not even be time to prepare. This is the moment for India to diversify its oil sources. Discussions on alternative energy, electric vehicles, and green hydrogen must now translate into action. Because this war isn't just about tanks and missiles, it's a war that threatens to poison the arteries of energy, supply chains, and the global economy. And if India wants to maintain its pace, its growth, and the trust of its people, then it must learn to swim before this dangerous wave strikes.
If our video has taught you something new, do not forget to like and share this video so that this information can reach others as well. Your likes and shares are a source of inspiration for us. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know in the comments. It will be our honor to answer your questions and listen to suggestions. And yes, if you like our content, subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you stay connected with every new story. Thank you. GRT Business YouTube channel sources: news from various news agencies, opinion polls, and other public sources. We try to ensure that every report and summary is accurate and verified, but we are not responsible for any dispute or error. Our aim is only to provide you with accurate information.